Hot Roster today. Gary and Cam still with you. Now breaking down a card that will be available to you on HotRoster.com. The Hot Roster today card number 3. 3, Cam.
Number 3.
We're moving up in the world.
Yes.
Some great matchups on this card, obviously. So great, we have to bring in our every Friday guest, Corey Parson, the fantasy executive. Corey, how's it going, man?
What's up, fellas? Getting ready to rock and roll. Get ready to get into Week 8. Looking forward to it. This is a very interesting card also.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one, and there's a matchup off the top that I feel like we're getting a lot of points for Derek Carr here, and it's kind of intriguing. Carr, a 3 fantasy point underdog to Matt Ryan. Now, obviously, Matt Ryan has done anything and everything you could ask of him this season, second only Tom Brady in fantasy points per dropback. But Carr, I know the numbers have been underwhelming, Corey, the last 2 weeks, but he's never played well against Kansas City, so I almost throw that one off the table. And then last week against Jacksonville, I mean, the Raiders scored 33 points. It was just a big running attack type game. I mean, they were moving the ball. So, you know, against Tampa Bay, a team that just seems to bleed points to quarterbacks, I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of points for Derek Carr.
You know what? When I first saw this spread, I was like, "Is this a mistake? Is this a typo? Is this an error?" Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, "Wow." I understand Matt Ryan has a big opportunity coming up this weekend at home versus the Packers, but you look at Derek Carr, even though it's on the road versus Tampa Bay, he has a plus matchup also, and then that 3 points, that's pretty tough. I'm gonna roll with Derek Carr on this one. I think this is a lot.
Yeah, boys, I'm noticing too. You want to talk about it, Corey? The numbers this week, like -3 and -2. So we're seeing less pick'ems. We're seeing, people are going one way. We have Gio Bernard versus James White. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter if James White doesn't get you running yards. He'll get you some receiving yards and a touchdown. That's the thing. White had a touch. He's got 3 touchdowns in his last 2. Bernard only has 2 touchdowns in his last 7 games. But the thing about Bernard is he's coming off 17 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown. He's been good. And if James White doesn't get you that touchdown, you're a little bit concerned because you know Bernard is going to get fed and get more work. Where are you going with this one, Corey? It's intriguing. You get White as a 2-point pooch going up against the Bills, but I don't know. I kind of lead Giovanni in this one.
Really, that's interesting. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this one right here. I think Giovanni has a tough match. I mean, not the tough matchup. Has the plus matchup this weekend. He gets the plus matchup for his running game, so that's a good look for him. But on the other side of it, I think the touchdowns that we see from James White, they've come with Tom Brady back in the fold. So that kind of, listen, you can't predict touchdowns, but that kind of shores it up for me a little bit. Jeremy Hill still in the mix also. So James White kind of got that load to himself. Well, LeGarrette Blount's going to be that guy between the tackles. So very similar situation. But I like James White touchdown thing he has going on right now with Tom Brady. So I'm going to take James White into 2 points.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird.
He just gets in that end zone.
Yeah,
That's the
he does.
thing.
And it's a
Doesn't matter what he
weird
does.
Washington defense this year against running backs. They've been awful against running backs, specifically on the ground, but surprisingly good against them in the passing game. Number 3 by DVOA against pass-catching running backs. Let's go to another quarterback matchup, Corey. Carson Palmer against Alex Smith. I mean, this one, if you had said this to me on week 1, it would seem like a landslide in favor of Carson Palmer with, you know, Alex Smith, the check-down machine. Unsurprisingly, the lowest ADOT in football among qualified quarterbacks, which is 7.3 yards. But Carson Palmer has been uninspiring. It has not been a good Carson Palmer year. So is this the week he finally breaks out, or is Alex Smith and the safety in Alex Smith the way to go?
You know what? This is an interesting call right here. Now, the Cardinals, they get a situation where they get to go to Carolina and take on the Carolina Panthers passing attack that has been beatable so far this season. And Alex Smith gets a plus matchup also against the Indianapolis Colts. But I'm going to say the safe bet right here is Carson Palmer and Larry Fitzgerald, especially this being a push. I like the fact that Fitz gets involved in the offense. He's getting those red zone targets, so that could lead to possible touchdowns. David Johnson is a workhorse. He's a pure machine. On the other side of the football, you never know with Alex Smith. Obviously, Spencer Ware is going to be a big part of this offense, but then you see them not getting Kelsey involved. We don't know where Jeremy Maclin disappeared to. If you're streaming him in your season long, I get it, but I'm not going to put a dime on Alex Smith.
Not putting a dime on Alex Smith.
I really can't blame you in that aspect.
I'm a gambling man. I don't like to put dimes on Alex Smith either there, Corey. I can tell you that. Let's talk about some receivers. We got Jordy Nelson and Doug Baldwin. Nelson's a half-a-point favorite in this matchup. Baldwin 7 more receptions. Baldwin more yards. But the thing, we talked about it with James White. Jordy Nelson is that red zone touchdown machine. But Baldwin, what a sweet matchup going into the confines of the Superdome. Seattle, they can light it up. I can see major points in that game. But Nelson, not a bad matchup either. It's hard to, what do you think about Atlanta? He can get his too, right?
They're both
Gary?
playing on the fast track.
Yeah, so I'm thinking Baldwin could explode in this one. He's a pooch, but where do you go? Because Nelson gets those touchdown looks in the red zone.
Yeah, Nelson is getting the red zone looks and those targets, but you know what? The past month or so, we're really starting to see the emergence of Devonta Adams, and of course, we see Ty Montgomery. So now, Jordy Nelson not that big, deep, long home run threat that he used to be, but he's still like that work inside the red zone. Of course, the Atlanta Falcons, I believe, gave up so far this season 16 touchdown passes. But you know what? I like that track in the dome down there in NO. Not to mention you getting points with Doug Baldwin. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Dougie Baldwin on this one. Jimmy Graham is the main target in that New Orleans passing game, but don't be surprised if Doug Baldwin has a good game.
Well, Corey, talk about recency bias a little bit and how Jordy Nelson has not been as good recently the last couple of weeks. Sort of the case with Marvin Jones right now, who at one point was leading the NFL in receiving yards, as crazy as that would sound. He gets Houston this week in a game that could be a little high scoring considering how bad Detroit's defense is. Still at 18.9 yards per reception, but Emmanuel Sanders is one of the most underrated fantasy contributors this season. 6th in targets, 13th in yards, and he's a half-point underdog in this matchup, a juicy matchup against San Diego. Kind of hard to ignore the underdog in this one.
Yeah, once again, looks like they made a mistake on the card. This one, take advantage of this one right here. Emmanuel Sanders getting the targets, the red zone targets, all the looks, a plus matchup. Obviously, this game right here is going to be about Devontae Booker and what that young man can do. That's what everybody's tuning in to see, as he's going to get his opportunity. But still expect solid, steady production from Emmanuel Sanders. On the other side of the football, Marvin Jones, the matchup is a little bit more tougher than we would like it to be this week, and we're starting to see Golden Tate get his looks back. Marvin Jones obviously dropping in targets the past month or so, so it looks like I'm going to take Sanders on this one, and what I'm thinking probably is another mistake on this card.
Yeah, it's
what about if Theo Reddick comes back?
Well, that's the thing.
That's huge. He has double the touches of anybody. That affects Tate and it affects Jones.
Dwayne Washington's coming back too. I mean, what do you expect from this Lions offense this week, Corey?
They could run the football. Houston can't stop the run, so they could try to run the football this week.
Not
I like that
Marvin
Sanders
Jones
pick. I like that Sanders pick.
And once again, that is the fantasy executive, Corey Parson. Corey, we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, we'll do the thing again. Looking forward to it, fellas. Everybody, good luck this weekend.
Yeah, good
Take
luck
care,
during
Corey.
Week 8. Obviously, once again, Corey Parson, the fantasy executive.
Detroit is a very, very interesting team this week for fantasy people because you don't know what these Lions are going to do. Lots of options.
It's one of the weirdest games on the slate because right now Houston dead last offensively in drive success rate. Successful drive determined by a series of downs that ends in either a first down or a touchdown. So just 64% of their downs are ending in first downs or touchdown. That's putrid right now. But Detroit, the highest defensive success rate. So something's got to give in this matchup. Maybe it's Hopkins. Maybe I'm forgetting his name because it's not even worth knowing at this point.
Exactly.
So when we come back on HotRoster today, we're done with football for Week 8. I hope you got your fix because we are talking some hockey on the other side of the break.